My name is Lisette. I am not associated with Lidl at all. That was just for you. And also, I should say, since this is an Agile conference, my name is Lisette Sutherland, and I am in no way related to Jeff Sutherland, because I get asked every 5 minutes. I'm not related at all. Yeah, sorry. I wish. So, let's see. I bet my flux is about to come on, so I might have to change something in a second. So, what I wanted to talk about today is how to be a high-functioning, high-performing, distributed Agile team. And I know there's a lot of debate in the Agile community whether it's possible or not. And I'm not here to argue remote is better than co-located, because it totally depends. But what I want to talk about is, what if we have to be distributed? Then what do we do? So I want to give you some of the stuff that I've learned over the last 5 years in interviewing teams, and hopefully there's something that you can take away that you can try with your team to make it a little bit better. So we all know that as technology advances, it's getting easier and easier to work with our colleagues across the globe. So that's a good thing, and in some cases a bad thing. And I know that many of you have to work with distributed teams. How many people here have distributed colleagues? Yeah, that's why you're here. Right, you're like, oh my God, help! Right, and I know that in the past, remote communication has been notoriously bad. How many of you are still using one of these? Oh my God. Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm really sorry. How many are being tortured by Skype for Business? I know. Oh, okay. WebEx. Okay, yeah, Skype is worse. Skype is worse. Microsoft Teams is better, but it's still not awesome. And what we want is awesome. So I'm going to hopefully show you some new things today to help, because a lot has happened in the last 5 years. And a lot of people just don't know about these things because, well, it's not our jobs to know about these things, right? But a lot has happened, and let's take another look at what's possible. So first, I want to show you proof that it is possible, so that you can see some case studies that it is actually possible to do this. And for the last 5 years, I've been running a podcast on my website where I've been interviewing teams that are rocking the remote world. So if you want to hear all the interviews, there are hundreds of teams that are rocking this remote space, many of them Agile teams, so please listen to the podcast. And then last year I published my book, Work Together Anywhere, available on Amazon, so all the stories and all the tips are in there as well. But one of the interviews in particular that I really, really liked was with the R-Loop team. Now, a few years ago, SpaceX announced a competition for who could build a Hyperloop. And that's what you're seeing here. The Hyperloop is a super fast transportation system that can take a commute of 7 hours and squeeze it into 15 minutes. You're basically getting shot through this gravity tube, right? And I wouldn't want to be the beta tester for that transportation system, but it sounds really cool. As soon as it works, I'm totally in. But Tom, on the upper right, he really wanted to join this competition, and so he wrote in Reddit, in one of the subreddits, hey, is there anybody else out there that would like to join this competition with me? And 1 year later, they had a team of over 400 volunteers who had never met from all over the world, and they came in finalists in this competition and are still working on the Hyperloop today. So yes, highly complex, big projects can be done with distributed teams, but we have to set them up the right way, and we have to use the right tools. So that's what we'll talk about. And the biggest thing to remember is, remote is not better or worse, it's simply different. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see made is we try to take all the practices that we have in person and just do them remote, and it doesn't translate well. Like, for example, in meetings, right? In co-located meetings versus online meetings. In a co-located meeting, you can get there and you can watch somebody give a presentation for 20, 30 minutes like what we're doing today, and it's not terrible, it's an okay experience. But if you have that in an online meeting and somebody's just blabbing on with a bunch of slides, you're definitely going to multitask. I mean, many of us are multitasking in the audience already in person. So we have to design our meetings differently. We have to design our remote teams differently. And there are many right ways. I wish there was one right way. I would totally sell you the silver bullet formula and make a whole bunch of money, but there are many right ways to do it. And so that's the thing that I've learned, is that you have to take all the things that you learn and try them on your team and see what works. Because sometimes things don't work for the weirdest reasons. I built a wiki system for a team of mine 5 years ago. It was a beautiful work of art, if I do say so myself. It linked to everything. The team didn't use it. So then yeah, it's not the perfect tool. It should have worked. There was no reason why it shouldn't have worked, but it didn't work, so the team didn't use it. Try something else. So I say there's no right ways, but there are kind of 3 buckets that we should focus on when we're going remote, and that is, 1, we've got to make communicating easy with each other. We have to define what normal behavior is on our team, and we have to find new ways of being present with each other at work. And I would add a 4th one is we've got to add fun to that, and that's I'm a big proponent of that. That's sort of where the magic happens in teams. When we like each other and we're having a good time, we're going to do good work. So there is an element of fun that we need to add in. But let's talk about making communicating easy, because it's not that hard to do it. We just have to have the right tools. And I really love this quote. It was from one of the interviews that I did with Agile Bill Krebs, and he said, people think that they want to be co-located, but what we really want is high bandwidth communication, right? We want to talk to the people online as if they're next to us in the office. And I always like to give this example of Star Trek. I love Star Trek, by the way. So, but...
Janeway to bridge.
Oh, we need sound.
Conoce here.
Janeway to bridge.
Conoce here.
Janeway to bridge, report.
It's close enough. Bridge, start the decompression sequence.
Acknowledged.
Janeway to com.
Paris here, Captain.
Janeway to Chakotay.
I'm here, Captain. We're pinned down.
I can see you from here.
Right, so that's what we want. We want Lisette to Scrum Team, and Scrum Team responds, right? Like we don't want barking dogs or coffee shop sounds or the engine in the background of driving. We want to have crystal clear communication, and so we do need to work on that. And one of the really simple things is, 1, we have to have an awesome internet connection. That's where it starts, right? It's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where Wi-Fi is the base. That is, on the remote working hierarchy of needs, Wi-Fi is the base. You need really good Wi-Fi because we've got to use tools and technology in order to talk to each other. So if you don't have that, you're doomed. So we'll just start there. So get really good Wi-Fi. Don't save money there. And we need to pay attention to sound quality. So like I said, the barking dogs, the car sounds. I once had a colleague who had a bird cage next to her workstation, and it's super cute at first, and then 10 minutes in, you're done with the bird. Right, you're like, okay, I'm done with this bird. So little things like that. So a headset can go a long way if you're working in an open office, just getting a nice noise-canceling headset. And there is this new app that people are raving about. I've tried it, it works really great, called crisp.ai. It takes the background sounds out for you, and it works with all the different tools. So I will say this, I'm going to show a bunch of tools today. I'm not affiliated with any of them. I'm just a slavish fangirl, and I'm just going to show you the things that I'm finding on the market that people are really enjoying. So Crisp is one of those. And of course, we need to use good equipment. So those spider phones and Skype for Business, like chuck them in a recycling bin, not in a river, please. But get rid of it because it's not doing us any good. We really do need to find ways to communicate better with each other. So get rid of that and get some good equipment. And this is, the old school style of conference rooms that we're all used to, where Bob's in the middle, like, hey Bob, it's Lisette, can you hear me? And Bob's just this annoying mosquito, like nobody really wants him to be there, but he's in the middle there. And this is the new style, and it's not that hard to do, right? We just need a couple of monitors, one for the remote participants so that they are actually present in the room at some sort of a realistic size, not some little box across the top or the bottom, and then a screen where people can see the information being shared, and then a webcam at the top which auto-focuses on the person who's speaking. That is definitely handy. And if you're having these hybrid meetings, which are really tough, this is a new, it's sort of the new speakerphone on the market. It's called Meeting Owl, and it's a 360-degree microphone and camera that auto-focuses on the person who's speaking. So as a remote participant, when you're calling in, you're seeing everybody in the room there at the top, and then it's auto-focusing on the last few people that have spoken, so that you can always see what's going on. It makes for a much nicer experience. And we're going into sort of next level tools now. I'm going to show some really far out stuff in a bit, but this one's a really great one. It's called Nareva. It's a virtual whiteboard so that you can get up to the board, put on your sticky notes, do all your brainstorming, and the remote participants can access it in real time as well. So super simple. There's lots and lots of these out there, but this one's special because they've also got a new sound system in there. So this speaker that you're seeing across the top there, that actually sends out 9,000 virtual microphones into the room. So regardless of where you are in the room, you could be under the table for whatever reason, or you could be under the table and the remote participants could still hear you. So some really good systems out there just to show that we can update our conference rooms. We could do a lot better than what we're doing now. And there's no reason to be in such pain. Okay. So that's just the basics of making communicating easy. Just keep thinking, Janeway to bridge. And that's what we're really going for on our teams. Now the next bucket is we need to figure out what is normal behavior on our teams. And I know in the Agile world we have working agreements. I call them team agreements. But I think we need to take it a step further. And just to act what is normal on our team. And I really, really like what Pia Maria had this morning when she says that all of us sort of have washing instructions for ourselves. So that's one thing that we need to somehow be able to communicate with our team is what are our own individual washing instructions, because we all have our own unique personalities. And then also, though, we need to figure out what are we as a team? How do we define our behavior as a team? When I interviewed Beat Buhlmann from Evernote, he says that they sit down and they define their etiquettes for all these different things. So how they behave in meetings, how they send their emails, how they use their calendar, what's required in their home office. And I would just say, just figure out, do you have core hours that you need to be online together? What are the tools that you're going to use to talk to each other? What are you going to do when conflict happens? This kind of thing. How are you going to collaborate together? Just setting out these ground rules for your team can go a long way for making a high-functioning team. One example that I like to give is the same colleague with the birdcage also used to send emails like instant message. So you just get 20 emails in a row, all with half sentences kind of that she's just sent off. And it's not really a problem because I know what to do with them. You delete 19 of them and then answer the one that actually has the question. But after a while, it becomes annoying and you stop wanting to communicate with that person. And on a remote team, that's not what we want. You want to communicate more with people. You don't want to have excuses for not talking to each other. So if she and I had just sat down and outlined, hey, if you're going to have a conversation, a stream of consciousness, just send me an instant message that I'm in the flow and I don't need these 20 emails in my inbox. These kind of small things, you'd be surprised at how far they go, because we all have our, some people are phone people, some people are email people, and it's good just to highlight what's going on there. So I say this because trust is such a big issue on teams, and we talk about this a lot, and it's such an abstract concept. We know when we have it, and we know when we don't, but it's hard to define it without using the word and the definition. But I've come up with sort of 3 things that I think we can focus on, which is being reliable, so I can rely on you to get the work done, being consistent in the quality of work that you produce, and responsiveness. Can I find you if I need to? Because of course, when you're remote and somebody's not responding, you don't tend to make positive assumptions about what they're doing. You tend to think they're probably just off watching Netflix on the couch and they're not responding to my email. You don't think I'm sure they're working really hard and they're really focused right now. All you know is they're not responding. So those are sort of the 3 basics, I think, of building trust on remote teams. These 3 things can go a long way. So in terms of team agreements, I have some instructions and guidelines if you're looking for how do I create a team agreement with my remote team. If you just go to extras on the website, you can just download some of these templates for free and try them out. It just gives you the questions, maybe questions that help jog your memory of what you'd like to ask. And of course, the slides are all available later. So, okay, but I want to focus sort of the next part of this on creating presence, because I think that this is the part that's really exciting in the modern day workforce is how can we be present at work without actually physically being at work? So the first one is, of course, we need to find ways to see each other, which means we have to turn the videos on. That's sort of the biggest thing. And I see people cringing already. Lots of people hate turning the videos on. And I'm here to say, get over it. Turn your videos on because you lose. So how many have watched a webinar without multitasking? Right? Nobody, right? It must have been a really interesting webinar. Because when we don't see each other, there's a whole sense that's gone. So turning the video on really helps relatability, also across countries if you're speaking different languages. It's much easier to understand somebody when you can see their lips moving. So these kind of things. So the video just creates presence and camaraderie and empathy on Teams. So really, I'm here to encourage you, if there's anything you take away from this, is please turn your videos on. Even if it's for the first 5 minutes of the conversation and then you turn it off, it's still better than nothing. And then the other thing we need to do besides seeing each other is we need to find new ways of being together online. And this is where it gets fun. Now, programmers have been doing this for ages, right? Pair programming, and a lot of programmers that I interviewed for my book actually said that they liked remote pair programming better than sitting together at the computer. I see a couple of nods. Yeah, we all have our own preferences for workspaces. You know, it's a comfortable space. We can have all of our monitors and keyboards and everything that we like, but there's no reason that other people besides programmers can't do this too. We can have these virtual collaboration sessions where we're actually just working together online. I did this with a colleague of mine in California. We wrote a book together about 7 years ago, and we would just get together online for the first 5 minutes, have a quick conversation like, hey, how's it going? How's your date last night? You have to have the girl talk. And then we would turn the videos off and go into a Google Doc and continue writing the book. Now, we enjoyed working together so much that after the book was done, that we decided, hey, these sessions are pretty fun. Why don't we just keep doing this? And so to this day, 7 years later, we still have our virtual co-working sessions every week. And I've still never met her in person, and she's one of my closest friends. So you can build these relationships online. Now, other teams are setting themselves up differently, and if this won't apply to everybody, but this is a team, it's actually 2 teams in Germany. One's in one city, they're the ones that you're seeing here on the far screen, and the other team's in another city. And what they've done is they just have a video connection all day with the sound on. So they're sitting, it's like, what they've done is simulated what it's like to sit in the same room together just by having video and sound on all day long. Now, you could turn the sound off. It depends on your preference, but this is how they've decided to work together. What you can't see very well is the screen on the left, which has their task board. So they're actually just moving their virtual tasks. I'm not sure what system they're using, but they're moving their virtual sticky notes as they're completing their tasks. Oh, the camera. I've always wanted to do that. As long as I look skinny, it's cool, right? So this is a team in Australia, and they have colleagues that are working in China. So what they've done is they have hundreds of people in both offices. So what they've done is they've set up these rolling monitors all over their offices so that they have this constant contact with their Chinese colleagues. So you can see here they sort of have this sort of chill out space, and then the Chinese colleagues, So you can see it up close. So they basically, you can accidentally bump into somebody in China from Melbourne, Australia, just by walking by and being like, hey, it's you, like, hey, let's hang out. So they have these all over their offices. They have their daily stand-ups with these. So it is new and weird, but it works for them. Okay, so we're gonna go a little bit into the weird now. This is a virtual office. Okay, weirder. This is a virtual office. It's exactly what it looks like. It's an office that you go to online. And each one, you're looking basically down on a floor plan, and each one of these individual boxes represents a room, and one of the individual circles are people that are in those rooms. So you can only see and hear the people that are in the same room as you, but you can see where everybody else is on the virtual floor plan. And if I want to go talk to the coffee drinkers up there, I just double click on the coffee drinkers room, and I'm in the room with the coffee drinkers hanging out. So this is a really interesting way. You don't have to call anymore like, hey, do you have time next Wednesday at 2 o'clock and schedule these meetings? You can actually just virtually knock on somebody's door now. So Coco has actually been on the market a really long time. There's some new competitors that look really fun. Remo is a brand new one. You can see it's sort of a similar layout. Walkabout Workplace is another one. It's a little bit more 3D. You can design your own office and your own view from your office. So you can do some fun things. But a lot of teams are using this now just to create presence with each other and to see where each other are and what you're working on. And then, if you know me, you know I'm a big fan of telepresence technology and robots. And this right here is a Kubi. Oh good, I'm not wearing the same outfit, that's good. So you would beam in just like you would on any video conferencing system, but with this tool you can actually move yourself from side to side, or you can nod your head yes, or nod your head no, right? So what this tool is perfect for is if you're the only remote participant in an all in-person team, you can now beam in and be with your team at the same table and move yourself to see who's talking and what's going on. And it opens up a whole new form of office humor, right? All of these things create new etiquette. So you've got like, wigs and bow ties and all kinds of things that people do to you. But so what this guy's done here with his Kubi is he's actually working from home because his kids are sick, but he's put his Kubi in his office so that anybody that goes into his office, it's like he's still there. So now you can be in 2 places at once, which I think is really cool, and we all need that at times. So that's the Kubi. This one doesn't work anymore, sadly. It's been through airport security way too many times. Yeah. And if you ever want to know how to get through security fast and they start asking you what's in your bag, just give a demo. They're like, oh no, just move on. I'm like, oh, it's a telepresence robot. And then so the other telepresence robots that are on the market now are drivable robots. You've probably seen this on The Big Bang Theory. That's where most people have seen these things. But basically, you beam in and you drive these things using the arrow keys of your keyboard. And it's at the Suitable Technologies office, 50% of their workforce is in the flesh, and 50% of their workforce beams in via robot every day. And let's see, what else? I've got a video to show a little bit about how this works. Now, the robot that you're going to see in the video is about belly button height, and I find that incredibly awkward because you're like staring at people's belly buttons, but just to show you there are many different kinds of these robots on the market. So let's see. We'll need sound again, Fran.
While sat at my desk in San Francisco, I can roam corridors in Cambridge, Massachusetts, seeking out people in their offices, attending meetings, and joining in with gossip in the kitchen. But replacing a person with a machine is not always straightforward. In our January issue, I take a look at the social side of becoming and working with a robot.
Controlling one of these telepresence robots is like using a video chat program with a few extra controls to steer yourself around. You can do most of the things that you would do in person. For example, stopping to talk with people you meet.
The Dominican Republic was great, Tom. They're trying to get a 2-year-old baby down to the Dominican Republic was difficult.
Oh, alright. Well, I'm sure he liked it when you got there.
Yeah.
Or having a conversation as you walk down a corridor alongside someone. Because you can get a feel for the space around you and watch people's body language, those conversations are much like those you would have face to face.
Or belly button.
I got much more out of our morning meeting as a robot than I would dialing in on the phone as usual. And the people there could talk to the machine as if it was me.
Okay, so you can sort of see the application of this. Again, if you're the only remote person in an all in-person team, something like this can really help bring your presence to the team. This small amount of movement actually has a really surprising effect, which is that it humanizes the person that's beaming in. So you're no longer just a static thing on the screen, you actually have movement, which makes you more human to the other person and just gives more presence. Now, just to go one step further out, we're now experimenting with virtual reality, which has been around for a very long time. I mean, Second Life has been around for 25 plus years now. The problem is that it's really hard to use. It's like learning how to play a piano. So now that the technology is getting simpler and the Wi-Fi is getting better, the tools are starting to really adapt to this too. And this one's called Roomy. It's virtual reality for remote teams. And you put on your headset, you go into your virtual office, you walk down the virtual hall into your virtual conference room with your virtual colleagues around a virtual whiteboard, and you have your stand up there and your meetings there. But people are actually starting to work 100% with monitors that are virtual also in virtual reality. There's virtual co-working spaces popping up all over the place. So it sounds really strange, and it is a bit strange until you get used to it, until you try it, and then you're like, oh, okay, it's not so bad. So that's fun. And then I'd like to take us one more step out. Promise this is the last one. Into holograms. I'm also a Star Wars fan. I want to give equal respects to Star Trek and Star Wars, of course. So with holograms, actually, we've come a long way, and they've been around a long time too, and I'm going to show you a couple of examples. But one example of a hologram technology that's come out this year is the Microsoft HoloLens, and it is incredible. So I'm going to show you a short clip of a demo that they've done recently. It was just this year, and I've cut the clip in the middle so you're going to notice, because we don't need to watch the whole thing. So I've cut the clip in the middle to go to the end. But this one's...
let me introduce you to Mini-Me. There she is, my perfect holograph. And thanks to the power of HoloLens 2, she just floats right with me. I'm literally holding my hologram, so natural. Now she's a little small to do a keynote. So let's get her up so she can do full-size Japanese keynote. Render keynote.
ホログラムになることには本当に驚くべきことがあります。私たちは最新の複合現実キャプチャ技術を使用し、私のホログラムを作成しています。
Now, as you can see, this is mind-blowing technology. And what you just saw was my life-size hologram, my exact replica, rendered here in real time, speaking Japanese with my unique voice signature. To do this, we use mixed reality technology to create my hologram and render it here live. Then we use Azure speech-to-text capability and English transcription to get my speech. Then use Azure Translate to get the speech into Japanese. And finally, applied neural text-to-speech technology so it sounded exactly like me, just speaking Japanese. And the most amazing part? All of these technologies exist today. The future is here.
So I really am inspired by that because I know it's complicated and we're not going to all go out and get holograms in our offices tomorrow, but just to let people know where we're going. And I think with climate change becoming a bigger issue, that technologies like this are things that we're going to need to start experimenting with, because it would be pretty cool if I could present to you here on stage as a hologram. And then not have to travel all the way from the Netherlands, even though I love Barcelona, so I'll take any excuse to come here. But another example that I want to show you is that this technology has been around really a long time, and I want to just show you a short video clip from a concert with Tupac and Snoop Dogg. And I thought you guys are probably like, we're at a developers conference, we did not expect to be watching Snoop Dogg, but I'm a huge fan. And I think also the hologram technology is amazing. So the guy in the white pants is Tupac, one of the most famous rappers ever. He died in 1996. And the other guy in the black outfit is Snoop Dogg. He's there in real life. And they're performing together in 2012 at Coachella. So I'm going to just show about a 1-minute clip. And just to warn you in advance, it is Snoop Dogg and Tupac with gangster rap. So the language is colorful, shall we say. So please be prepared in advance. What I want you to focus on is on the hologram technology.
Have one on us. Kick that shit, nephew. Picture perfect. I paint a perfect picture. Bomber hooches with precision. My intentions to get with you with that and double OP. Dog, my fucking homie. Use a cold ass nigga on the mall. Shut up. I keep my hand on my gun, cause they got me on the run. Now I'm back in the cold room, waiting on the outcome. Boy, Tupac is on the soul of niggas' mind. But at the same time, they see me trying to take mine. So I'm gonna get smart and get the best of this shit. And put together a million more for this gangster shit. So now they got us laced. 2 multi-millionaire motherfuckers catching cases. Bitches get ready for the throwdown. The shit's about to go down. Me and Snoop about to clap. If you got it, better floor. Another one. 2 other men smoke one. Party, party, party.
So pretty incredible technology for even 2012. I mean, if you didn't know that it was a hologram and you were just watching it, you would guess that he was there in real life. So incredible stuff that we can do. So I've shown you a lot of things. If you want to see all the tools, I've got them all listed on the web. I have a whole page with hundreds and hundreds of tools that you can check out. Again, I'm not affiliated with any of them. I don't make any money off of that. But just to check out. And I would also like to say, it's not about the tool. It is about the behavior that these tools enable us to do. So when we're trying to create presence on our team, that we need to use some sort of video technology. You don't have to go to virtual reality. You don't have to be a hologram. But just to say, we can do a lot better than the spider phone sitting on our tables right now. And we really should make the effort to update that. So just really quickly, in the last 5 minutes or so, I want to touch on the fun part, because I think sometimes this gets overlooked in teams. Like, we're all like, okay, we've got an agenda, let's get in, let's get out, and then there's no fun left over, and I think it's an important component. Most people, super simple, right? In our Slack groups or in our group instant messaging systems, whatever one you're using, there's always some sort of a fun channel that people start up. Now the thing that I would say is if your channel has died down, then you need to give it some attention because it's not going to just stay fun on its own. It does require some deliberate work to keep these things up, just like any community management would. There's also virtual lunches. These are two colleagues of mine. They used to have lunch every Wednesday. They would just get together, invited everybody in the company, whoever was there would have lunch together. And it's a little bit weird. You have to get used to eating on camera. It's a little, you're like this far away from each other eating food. So just a matter of getting used to it. But they used to do this and it was highly effective. Other teams are doing virtual coffees. Like some teams have virtual coffee every Friday morning. They all just hang out. Their only rule is no talking about work. Just coffee. Hang out for 15 minutes and then get back to work. And then there's lots of things like quiz nights and playing games together. There's all kinds of things that we can do online. And if you want to get really crazy, you could join the Happy Millie team, and we have virtual dance parties on a regular basis. So one person DJs and the rest of us get up and boogie. Some of us harder than others, obviously. And I close my curtains so that my neighbors aren't like, what in the world is she doing in there? So not to say that you have to go out and have virtual dance parties per se, it's a bit silly, it depends on the team, but there's a lot that we can do within our 4 virtual walls, and I want to just encourage people to explore and be a little bit creative with your teams, because we don't just have to sit there, we can do other things. And the biggest thing is put time into team building, because you're not going to accidentally bump into somebody online unless you're in a virtual office, and then you will, but you really do need to make it deliberate and to put time into it, because if you leave it to chance, chances are it won't happen. So that's sort of the main message. So I know many of you that are here, you have to work with distributed teams. And again, there are many right ways. There's no one right way to do it. But when we get distributed Agile right, the payoff is huge. As individuals, we get freedom. We get freedom to work where we're most productive. There are some companies, there's one of the companies I interviewed in Australia was founded by digital nomads, and they encourage their employees to travel 3 months of the year. They have sort of rules in place for that. But how cool is that? Like, it would be great to be able to work for a company that says, hey, for 3 months, just go where you need to go. Just make sure you follow you have to have a certain internet speed and these kind of things. But the freedom that we as individuals get is pretty astounding. And as companies, we get a stronger and more connected workforce. Because when we go remote first, then regardless of whether the company allows flexible working or not, that we can still get our work done even if we can't get to the office. Because sometimes it's traffic or weather or sick kids at home. It shouldn't be location-based necessarily. We should have the processes in place to be able to do our work. And just to remember, make your communicating easy, Janeway to Bridge easy, define your normal behavior on your team, and then find ways of being present together. And of course, have a really, really good time. If you want to read more of the stories or listen to the podcast, it's all available on the website. The book costs like 15 euros or something, but everything else is available for free on the website. So I encourage you to explore that. And if you're looking for something in particular, just get in touch with me. I know where everything is. I'll just send you whatever you need to know. So thank you so much for I'm so pleased that you were all here today. This is the last session, one more to go. But really, I appreciate it, and I hope you got something from this today. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Lisette, for your awesome presentation. We have a question from the app. The question is, for a manager of several remote teams, how do you balance responsiveness versus focus versus being on others' meetings all day? For example, should we reply to every message almost real time, every hour, just have 2-3 checkpoints during the day?
Yeah, I would say do not do the 24/7 working thing. So one of the things is managers are always afraid to let people go remote or flexible because they think that they're going to be lazy, and it turns out the opposite is true. We overwork ourselves. So this is a really good point. We want to be Janeway to Bridge between a certain hours, and then after those hours, you don't want to be in contact anymore. It's really important to go offline and to disconnect, especially from work. Our brains need it, our bodies need it. So the thing is that when we work remote, we have all this freedom, and there's nobody that says like, oh hey, it's 5 o'clock, time to go home now. We have to put those boundaries in place for ourselves. So those washing machine instructions that Pia Maria started with, I would say Get your washing machine's instructions to your team to let them know, when you are available for working. Like my husband and I have an agreement that I don't work before 9 a.m. or after 9 p.m. I don't work the entire 12 hours, but between those 12 hours, I'm free to do what I want. And after that time, no work at all. I put everything away, and I just have that rule for myself. And it's surprisingly hard to keep that, even for myself, even though I know it's good. So for that kind of stuff, you don't be always on. You'll totally burn yourself out. But put boundaries in place for yourself, and then communicate that with your team.
Thank you. Any other question?
I'm always scared when somebody's hand shoots up. I'm like, oh.
Is there any magic formula for time zones? Managing teams with different time zones, like India, West Coast.
Yeah,
Europe.
time zones are really tough. I won't try to sugarcoat that. Time zones are tough. We can't physically squeeze the world closer together. It's a physics problem. When with time zones, the answer to time zones is really good organization for your team. So if you're going to do something like follow the sun, organize your team to really be follow the sun. But most of the time, maximize your overlap time. If you have no overlap time, a lot of us, we do a lot of written synchronous or asynchronous communication. Instead of that, consider sending video messages instead, or recording your meetings when other colleagues can't be there so that they can at least see the discussions and see what happened. So try to mix up the type of communication. And time zones is an organizational problem. Sometimes you need to separate the teams because they're just too far apart, and sometimes you need to have 2 Scrum Masters who are talking to each other, or have 2 stand-ups per day so that people can update each other. But time zones are super tough. There's a whole bunch of little solutions, but it really depends on your team and how much overlap you have. But if you're working with New Zealand, it's rough. It's 13 hours time zone difference, or 12, depending on the time of year. So it's super rough. Yeah. Sorry, I don't have the silver bullet answer for time zones.
Thanks for the presentation. Some of the tools you show are really amazing, but I guess they are not the cheapest thing on the market. Do you have any tips on convincing our management to invest on those? How will you sell them those things?
Yeah.
Apart from, we are going to work better.
Yeah, I mean, with managers are like, you want a telepresence robot? I have to say, telepresence robots, they used to be $20,000, and now they're like $2,000. So that's affordable. I mean, if you put I would say, find out how much time you're wasting in the first 15 minutes of every meeting trying to get the tech to work, and then times that by salaries and how many meetings you have per day, and there's a pretty strong, convincing ROI reason to invest in better technology and to just throw Skype for Business out the window, for example. I really hate it. I mean, of all the tools, like we all have to use it, and it's so bad compared to the other tools. So yeah, I would say for ROI, all the inefficiencies that we have with remote teams, for 2,000 euros, you can buy a telepresence robot and just experiment with it. I mean, I would say just add up the cost for the time you're wasting in your meetings right now. Yeah, or the trouble that you have communicating with your other teams. So I would phrase it as an experiment. Like, let's try this and see what happens. But the technology's not that expensive. I mean, a Kubi is like $500 US. That's totally okay. I mean, a company should be willing to invest $500 in that, or 2,000 euros for a telepresence robots. It's not so much money. So yeah, the tools are coming down in price every day. Holograms are still way out, it costs millions to create Tupac. So that's out of the question. Yeah. But yeah, try to do the ROI of inefficiencies.
Okay.
I'm trying to keep it short because I know there's other things that we want to do. I'll be around for the rest of the day and at the networking dinner.
Hi. I have 2 questions. You decide which one. One is security protocols. What about needing to be safe on connection, everything I can imagine you know, and personal life. How to better live working remotely, not to stay in pajama all day long and this kind of syndrome.
It is a luxury. What I'd say is, first of all, if you're going to be on video, you can keep your pajama bottoms on, but put on a fresh shirt or a scarf, for to be fashionable. For security protocols, that's actually a very serious question. A lot of the tools now, I mean, like Zoom, for example, is one of the best video conferencing tools on the market. It has the same security, it has just as good of security protocols as some of the other ones. I think the hardest thing is trying to convince the IT departments to try something new. Because nobody ever got fired for saying no. Right, but if they let something happen, especially when we work for banks or insurance companies, and these security protocols are really of utmost importance, it is to be taken seriously. And what I would just say is push back on the IT departments to give it a try, because most of the time they're just comfortable and they don't want to rock the boat. But we're suffering out there, and there's all these new great tools on the market, and the security, those are solvable problems. But it does work with the IT team on that. Yeah, and for remote workers, if you don't want to be in your pajamas all day, you really do have to, it's like losing weight, right? We all know the formula. It's super easy, it's just really hard to do. It's the same thing with remote. Like we all know we got to get out of our pajamas, but it's hard to do. You just have to put those things in place for yourself. Or go to co-working spaces, find motivations to get out. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We have to stop it here because we have to go upstairs to the next session.
Thank you all.